Welcome to the Foundry by Forge College. Today's explainer gives you the master architect's blueprint for balancing security and usability in smart wallet design. Now, if you've been following along in our Applied Solidity development track, specifically within our Designing Smart Wallet Patterns module, you know we recently tackled comparing mainnet and devnet environments. Today, we're taking that exact same analytical mindset and applying it to the very structure of the wallets your users will interact with every single day.
Here's our roadmap for this one. We'll start by breaking down the core wallet design dilemma, then map out our trade-off framework. After that, we'll apply it to a real-world social tipping app, pop open the hood to look at the trade-offs in Solidity code, and finally, put it all together.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the wallet design dilemma. It really all comes down to friction versus protection. So every Web3 architect faces this massive elephant in the room. It's this constant tug of war between keeping your users completely safe and, frankly, keeping them sane. We really want to avoid the absurd extremes here. Imagine you build a high-friction titanium vault. It is absolutely perfectly secure. But imagine having to wait out a mandatory 3-day time lock just to buy your morning cup of coffee. You'd literally be caffeine-deprived and furious, right? On the flip side, we have the highly usable but absolutely terrifying cardboard box scenario, leaving your entire life savings out on the sidewalk in a box with no lock at all. Both of these are total failures in user experience. They're just failing on opposite ends of the spectrum. And you know, this brilliantly illustrates a core truth. Just like choosing the right network environment is absolutely vital, you must choose the right user environment. Think back to our previous explainer comparing mainnet and devnet. We established you obviously wouldn't test unverified code with real funds. Similarly, designing a smart wallet requires selecting the exact right friction environment for your user's specific daily needs. You always have to design for the actual, real human holding the phone. Moving right along to Section 2, the core trade-off framework. Let's start tuning those dials.
So how exactly do we escape this dilemma? Well, we need a concrete framework. Think of these as precision dials right on your engineering console. Every single design choice boils down to tuning 4 main dials. First up is capability criticality. Basically, how dangerous is this action? Second is user frequency. How often does the user actually do this? Third is usability cost. How much annoying friction does this add to their day? And fourth, the attack surface multiplier. How many new failure points, like extra smart contracts or trusted third parties, are we accidentally introducing by adding this shiny new feature?
Let's look a bit closer at that first dial. Capability criticality essentially asks you to measure the potential blast radius. Say someone loses a $2 tip on a social app. Honestly, that's low criticality. We can handle that, no sweat. But a hacker draining a massive decentralized autonomous organization's treasury, that is incredibly high criticality. You've got to tune your security dials based entirely on that blast radius.
Notice how this engineering spec sheet outlines the real mechanical costs here. If you add a multi-signature requirement, boom, you immediately increase approval latency and gas costs per transaction. Decide to add social recovery, great, but you suddenly make onboarding way more complex for a new user. Even a simple daily limit can cause frustrating false blocks for legitimate users trying to spend their own money. These aren't just abstract ideas, they are hard, measurable metrics you absolutely must track.
Okay, Section 3. Let's look at a real-world application. We're going to dive into a social tipping app scenario. Let's pull this blueprint out of the theoretical realm. We're building a consumer-facing social app where users send tiny crypto tips to their favorite creators. Here's our scenario goal. We need low-friction onboarding, lightning-fast payments, decent fraud limitation, and of course, a reliable way to recover accounts. Now, in this specific app, sending a tip is a high-frequency, low-criticality action. Users are doing it all the time, and it's just a few pennies. But recovering a lost account? That's a very low-frequency event, but it's extremely high criticality for the poor user who just dropped their phone in a lake.
So let's look at pattern A, social recovery. In this setup, you onboard smoothly, maybe just an email login. You can send your tips instantly. It's a fantastic, fast path. But if you do lose your key, you have to use guardians, trusted friends, or maybe other devices to recover it. It's a really solid pattern, though you do have to ask yourself a kind of funny question. Do you actually want to bother 3 of your best friends to approve a complex key rotation just so you can recover $5 worth of tip money?
Now compare that to pattern B, a 2 of 3 multisig wallet. Here, every single transaction needs 2 signatures, so we dramatically reduce the risk of a single key being compromised. We're talking maximum security, but at what cost? Incredibly high friction for your daily tips. Imagine needing to grab your iPad just to approve a 50-cent tip you tried to make on your phone. If you implement this, you might honestly see your abandoned tip rate skyrocket by 12% or more simply because it's just way too annoying for the user to bother with.
Right, time to put on our hard hats. Section 4, Tradeoffs in Solidity code. Let's step inside the engine room.
Down in the engine room, this incredibly simple only owner modifier is basically our fast path. It explicitly prioritizes usability by allowing direct, low-friction calls straight from the owner for routine operations. When we run through these exact code scenarios in the Advanced Applied Learning courses over at Forge College, we always emphasize that this one little line of code is heavily tilted towards usability. It avoids any extra on-chain checks, which naturally saves gas and executes instantly.
But what if we want to add a safety net without completely ruining that fast path? Enter the daily limit logic. This beautifully simple if statement brilliantly reduces the blast radius of a compromised key without slowing down the user one bit. If the tip is under the limit, it executes instantly. The mechanical cost, though. Tracking that spent on day variable requires storage rights, which does cost us extra gas for every single transaction. So there's always a trade-off.
And if we pivot back to our Guardian recovery path, we avoid a central custodian, which is fantastic for the whole Web3 ethos, but we absolutely pay a hefty mechanical cost. We need extra storage slots just for mapping Guardian addresses. We need per-action on-chain checks. We force the poor user into complex off-chain coordination to try and wrangle their friends to help. And as an engineer, you have to deal with intricate, annoying edge cases, like how to safely reset approval votes if a recovery gets canceled midway through. As they say, security is literally never free.
All right, we made it to Section 5, putting it all together. Let's do our final inspection. So, if you take nothing else away from today, your primary takeaway has to be this simple golden rule. Match the friction of the security mechanism directly to the frequency and criticality of the user's action. You want to protect your high criticality, low frequency actions, like draining an entire account or changing an owner, with intentional, heavy friction. Use time locks, use multisig, use guardians, but protect your low criticality, high frequency actions, like tipping your favorite creator, with seamless, fast paths and daily limits.
And look, the days of just relying on your gut feeling to design security are completely over. You have to define numeric thresholds. You actually need to sit down with your product team and ask the hard questions. Is our target approval latency under 30 seconds? Do we absolutely need recovery completion under 48 hours? What is our mathematically acceptable abandon flow rate for this new feature? Exactly how much extra gas delta per transaction are we willing to swallow? You must use quantifiable metrics to justify exactly how much speed you are trading for safety.
So I'll leave you with this final question to ponder. What measurable metrics define your perfect wallet? Because remember, you just can't optimize for everything, so what are you going to prioritize? Keep these thresholds fresh in your mind as we evaluate actual pattern libraries in our next explainer. And hey, to truly master these concepts and learn how to build these complex systems yourself, make sure to visit forge.college to explore our programs and dive even deeper into Web3 development. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you next time.